Why the universe has no beginning. A Buddhist insight into existence. Why we always need a beginning. We humans carry a powerful instinct, the need for a starting point. Every story we love begins with one. Every project starts with day one. Every life we know begins with a birth. This habit gives us comfort. It helps us bring order to a world that often feels unpredictable. Our minds search for causes. We look back, trying to trace a straight line to the very first domino that set everything in motion. And in everyday life, this works. It helps us fix problems, make sense of events, and build logical systems. But what happens when we apply this habit to everything? To the universe itself, or to the stream of life we're part of? We instinctively assume there must be a chapter 1. We imagine there was some original moment, some cosmic beginning, some first cause that explains why we are here. But Buddhism offers a different view, not by giving us a better theory, but by inviting us to question this very assumption. According to Buddhist insight, based not on belief, but on deep observation, the flow of existence is without a discoverable beginning. In Pali, this is called anammataga, a term that means no beginning can be found. This doesn't mean that existence is a static, eternal block. It means that the process of causes and conditions has been flowing for so long that no starting point can be located. Not because it's hidden, but because it's simply not how reality works. This may feel uncomfortable. We want the security of a beginning. But perhaps the real issue isn't whether there was one. Perhaps the more important question is this: is our search for a first cause helping us understand the truth of our existence? Or is it pulling us away from what's happening right now, the living causes and conditions that are unfolding in this very moment? Existence is conditional. To understand why we exist in a world without a discoverable beginning, we must return to the Buddha's deepest realization. On the night of his enlightenment, seated beneath the Bodhi tree, he did not simply awaken to the fact that life includes suffering. He turned inward and began to investigate its engine. He didn't ask, what was the first cause in time? He asked, what are the conditions right now that allow suffering to arise and continue? The answer he found was not a story, not a belief. It was a pattern he called paticcasamuppada, dependent origination. At its core, dependent origination reveals that everything we experience arises because of conditions. Nothing exists independently. As the Buddha expressed it, when this is, that is. When this ceases, that ceases. This is not philosophy. It is a direct observation of how the world functions. Things appear not because of a single moment of creation, but because of countless interwoven causes, all coming together in this very moment. We can begin with something familiar. A tree grows from a seed. It seems simple enough. But look more closely. The seed came from another tree. That tree came from another seed. Follow the chain backward, and we never find a first tree. What we find is a cycle. Seed becoming tree, tree giving rise to seed, without a starting point. This is how all conditioned things arise. Not from nothing, and not from a single moment, but from a flow without origin. But dependent origination doesn't just explain the past. It explains the present. Even if you hold a seed in your hand, it will do nothing on its own. It needs soil, water, light, warmth. Only when all these conditions come together does growth begin. And even then, the tree continues to depend on these supports every single day. Existence is not a fixed event. It's an ongoing, conditional process. And so are you. You are not the result of one ancient moment in time. You exist now because two great streams are converging. The stream of past causes, your karmic tendencies, your habits of mind, and the full set of present conditions, your body, your breath, your thoughts, your relationships, the world around you. You are not a fixed entity. You are a living process, rising and passing in every moment, supported by conditions. But the Buddha went even deeper. In the final watch of the night, he didn't just see the pattern. He saw its structure. He laid it out clearly, not as a belief system, but as an engine of suffering. He described 12 links in this cycle, each one conditioning the next, not in a straight line, but in a self-reinforcing loop. It begins, for the sake of explanation, with ignorance, not knowing the true nature of reality. From ignorance arise mental formations, our deep habits, our unconscious patterns. These give rise to consciousness, the flowing awareness that continues from moment to moment. Consciousness gives rise to mind and body, the organism we call a person. This gives rise to the six senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. When these six faculties come into contact with the world, there is contact, the meeting point between sense organ, object, and awareness. From contact arises feeling, pleasure, pain, or neutral sensation. And here is the turning point. From feeling comes craving, the thirst to hold on to pleasure, to run from pain. Craving leads to clinging, a deeper attachment to experiences, ideas, and the self. Clinging conditions, becoming, the karmic momentum that pushes us into future existence. This leads to birth, not just physical birth, but the arising of a new identity in every situation. And where there is birth, there will be aging and death, along with sorrow, grief, and despair. This is the full cycle of suffering, not driven by a god, nor a cosmic accident, but by ignorance and craving. Because it feeds itself. Our clinging creates more habits, which reinforce our ignorance. It has no discoverable beginning. It is a fire burning on its own fuel. So when you ask, "Why do I exist?" the Buddhist answer is not poetic or abstract. It is exact. You exist because right now, this 12-link process is unfolding. Your senses are making contact. Feelings are arising. A subtle craving is shaping your next thought, your next action. You are not a permanent thing that was created. You are this unfolding process of dependent origination. And the more clearly you see it, the closer you come to true freedom. Beyond first causes, Buddhism, science, and philosophy. Up to this point, we've been looking inward, into the very engine of existence, into the moment-by-moment unfolding of life through causes and conditions. But now, let's take a breath, step back, and ask, how does this view compare to other great human attempts to understand existence? Across cultures and centuries, humans have asked, where did all this come from? What set the whole thing in motion? From the philosophers of ancient Greece to the physicists of today, this question has never stopped echoing through our minds. In classical Western philosophy, the idea of an infinite regress of causes was considered logically impossible. Aristotle famously proposed a first cause, an unmoved mover that began all motion, but was itself uncaused. This idea became foundational for the Abrahamic religions, a creator God who stands outside time, starting the universe like a clockmaker. It's clean, logical, and comforting, a story with a definite beginning. Science took a different path. It demanded not belief, but measurement. The Big Bang Theory, dominant in the 20th century, described the universe as expanding from a hot, dense point roughly 13.8 billion years ago. At first glance, this looked like a scientific confirmation of a cosmic beginning. But the deeper physicists looked, the more complex the picture became. The Big Bang describes what happened after that initial state. It doesn't and can't describe what came before it, because the known laws of physics cease to function at that point. It's like asking, what's north of the North Pole? This is exactly the metaphor Stephen Hawking used. In his groundbreaking work on time and cosmology, he suggested that asking what came before the Big Bang might be as meaningless as asking what's outside the edge of the Earth, because the Earth has no edge. Time itself, he proposed, may be curved and self-contained. The universe would be completely self-contained and would have no boundary or edge. It would neither be created nor destroyed. It would just be. This vision, scientific yet startlingly metaphysical, brings physics surprisingly close to something ancient, a reality without a findable beginning. And this is where the Buddhist view becomes remarkably distinct. The Buddha neither accepts nor denies a first cause. He simply asks, is this question helpful? Will chasing the origin of the cosmos free us from suffering? In the Akanteya Sutta, the Buddha lists speculation about the universe, called lokachinta, as one of 4 unconjecturables. These are questions that, no matter how intensely we think about them, lead only to confusion, restlessness, and endless debate. The Buddha doesn't prohibit thinking, but he warns that some types of thinking are like trying to count the grains of sand on a shore when your foot is pierced by a thorn. Lokachinta refers to that kind of obsession. Where does the universe begin or end? Is it finite or infinite? Who or what created it? Is there something beyond it? These are the kinds of questions that feed intellectual pride but starve spiritual insight. The Buddha's genius was not in dismissing such questions as irrelevant, but in redirecting our attention. The fire is burning. You can study the forest, the clouds, the wind. But if your house is on fire, wouldn't you want to put it out first? So while philosophy builds its case for a first cause, and science unravels the fabric of time, Buddhism turns inward. It does not ask, what began the universe? It asks, what is perpetuating your suffering right now? Not in the past, not in theory, but here, in this body, in this breath, in this craving that just arose. That shift from cosmic speculation to inner investigation is what makes the Buddhist path so radically practical. The question is no longer, how did it all begin? The question is, how can I be free from what is still unfolding right now? The Buddha's 2 medicines. We've now reached a moment that can feel like a contradiction. On one hand, the Buddha clearly warned against speculating about the beginning of the universe. He called such questions a trap for the mind. And yet, in many places throughout the Pali Canon, he states directly that samsara, the cycle of birth and death, is beginningless. Why would he reject one question about origins, yet speak so firmly on another? At first glance, this seems puzzling, but it is not a contradiction. It is the mark of a masterful teacher who knows how to diagnose the exact illness of each mind and prescribe the appropriate medicine. The Buddha never spoke to impress or to satisfy curiosity. He spoke to liberate. Every teaching was a tool, crafted with surgical precision to cut through suffering. Consider the famous case of the monk Malunkyaputta, found in the Kula Malukya Sutta. Frustrated by unanswered questions, he approached the Buddha and demanded clarity. Is the universe eternal or not? Is it infinite or finite? Does the Tathagata exist after death or not? He even threatened to abandon the path if he didn't receive answers. But the Buddha did not respond with a theory. Instead, he told a story. A man is shot by a poisoned arrow. Instead of removing it, he demands to know who shot it, where they came from, what their caste was, what kind of bow they used. And while he waits for these answers, he dies. The lesson is sharp. If your house is on fire, you don't stop to ask what kind of wood the beams are made of. You get out. In this moment, the Buddha's silence is compassion. He withholds knowledge not because it's hidden, but because it's not what will save you. And yet, this same Buddha, in another context, speaks with startling clarity. In the Anammataga Samyutta, he declares that this cycle of existence has no discoverable beginning, and he doesn't say it softly. He says, "Monks, the tears you have shed while wandering this long path of birth and death are more than all the waters in the four great oceans." In another discourse, he says, "The bones left behind from your past lives would pile up into a mountain higher than this peak." Why such vivid, even shocking imagery? Because in this case, he is speaking not to a doubter looking for intellectual closure, but to dedicated practitioners, those already committed to the path, but perhaps forgetting its urgency. To them, he offers what we might call spiritual shock therapy. Not to frighten, but to wake them up. This isn't an abstract theory. It's a mirror held up to your own existence. You've been here before. You've suffered before. And unless you act, you will suffer again. This is the emotion known in the Buddhist tradition as samvega, a deep, shaking realization that the cycle is real, is vast, and is not going to end on its own. It is the feeling that says, "I cannot waste this life." So why does the Buddha sometimes remain silent, and other times speak forcefully? Because his aim is not to answer all questions. His aim is to cut through delusion wherever it hides. To those lost in empty speculation, he gives silence. To those ready for awakening, he gives urgency. That's why the teaching of beginningless isn't a cosmological belief. It's not there to explain the universe. It is a tool, sharp, direct, and liberating. It strips away the fantasy that there was ever a single event to blame for our suffering. It dissolves the illusion that we were created in some special moment, with some fixed identity. And it leaves us with one unavoidable truth. If the cycle has no beginning, then the only meaningful place to end it is right now. How a beginningless truth changes everything. Understanding the idea of a beginningless conditional world isn't just an abstract insight. It becomes truly powerful when we bring it into our everyday lives, especially in the moments when we are suffering, searching, or stuck. Let's explore 3 ways this wisdom can transform how we live. First, when we face pain, loss, failure, illness, life delivers them to all of us, sometimes without warning. And almost always, our first inner reaction is the same. Why me? This question feels natural, but hidden inside it is a dangerous idea that we've been singled out, unfairly punished, as if life is targeting us. This belief only deepens our suffering. It adds bitterness, resentment, and confusion on top of the pain. But when we see our life through the lens of dependent origination, the question changes. It's no longer why me, but what are the conditions that led to this? You're no longer a victim of a personal curse. You are the ripening of a process, a complex stream of causes stretching back beyond memory. This doesn't erase the pain, but it dissolves the second layer of suffering, the anger, the blame, the story that says, this shouldn't be happening. And that small shift makes a very big difference. Second, when life feels empty or meaningless. It's a quiet kind of suffering, the question that creeps in when things are stable but hollow. What's the point of all this? If there's no grand beginning or ultimate destination, then why do we keep going? The Buddha's answer turns everything upside down. He doesn't say life has no meaning. He says meaning is not at the end of the road. It's in the quality of how we walk it. Meaning is not a destination to be discovered. It is something we create moment by moment, through our actions. Through karma, which the Buddha defines in the Nibbidhika Sutta in the simplest, clearest way. Satanaham, bhikkhave, kamam vadami. It is intention, O monks, that I call karma. So what gives your life meaning? Not what you own, not how you feel, not what happens to you, but what you choose. Every thought, every response, every gesture is a brushstroke in the painting of your life. The picture is being painted right now, not later, not someday. Third, when we want to change but feel trapped by old habits. Even if we understand suffering, it doesn't mean we're free from it. We still get angry. We still cling. We still fall into the same loops again and again. It feels automatic, like we're watching ourselves repeat things we promised we'd stop doing. But here's the truth. This beginningless cycle of suffering is not a sealed fate. It's not a machine running on its own. It's a fire. And that fire needs fuel. That fuel is our unexamined reactions, craving, aversion, distraction. The good news: we can interrupt the feeding. Between every feeling and every reaction, there's a space. Someone criticizes you. You feel heat rise in your chest. But before you speak, before you snap, there is a pause. It might be just a breath, but it's there. And in that space lies your freedom. This is the whole spirit of mindfulness, as taught in the Satipatthana Sutta. To observe feeling without being consumed by it. To see anger arise without becoming it. To recognize craving without feeding it. Every time we do this, even just for a second, we break a link in the ancient chain. We weaken the habit. we interrupt a beginningless pattern with a moment of awareness. And in that moment, we reclaim our life.